Cool. So this is my first stream, and I'm just getting used to doing this. You can see I have no idea. It's got like the infinite windows. So I'm gonna like pause my own stream. Um, cool. Hi, I'm Connery, and so the Solo Foundry channel is essentially um, for building startups. So Solo Foundry is like a mixture of like solopreneur and like a foundry, like a thing that makes things. So this is kind of what I do for a living is I help people build MVPs. And sorry, taking a step back. Okay, so like a tech startup, right? Um, you back in the old days, you would like raise a whole bunch of money, and then you would spend forever building this thing, and then you would launch it, and hopefully people would actually use it. Um, and that was really expensive, right? And so there was a lot of money wasted. And then about 10 years ago, a person called Eric Ries came out with the concept of a lean startup. And the idea was like, hey, let's like do things as quickly as possible and with as little waste as possible. Learn quickly, iterate, experiment, adjust. So an MVP is a minimal viable product. And if you search online, there's like a million people that talk about it. Essentially, it's like, okay, what's the smallest thing that we can build that still has value that people would still pay for? So a lot of times people come to me and they say, hey, I have this idea for this thing I want to build. And we start this whole process. And usually the process goes, all right, well, let's kind of like talk about the whole scope of the project and what you want to do. Because if you ever had an idea for a startup or really any sort of creative project, often it can just like consume your whole life, right? And for instance, last night, I couldn't sleep. I was really excited about today and getting started on this one idea that I've been putting off for a while. So I was probably up till about 3, and it sucks because I have a 7:30 a.m. client call. But in a way, it's good, right? Because that means that being excited about stuff is good. One of the problems is that it can kind of blind you, and I fully admit that it is so hard to see it in yourself. It's much easier to see it in other people. So perhaps people who are viewing this might say, this is a dumb idea. To which I would say, okay, valid. Um, I want to build it anyways. And a lot of times that's just, in a sense, I feel like I'm scratching my own itch. So I don't know that I'm going to do the full process that I normally do. So it usually goes, okay, let's kind of brainstorm on it. And then we go out and we talk to potential customers. So we would learn about what their current process is like, what are some of the pains that they have, where are some places where we could potentially make their life easier. And then at the end of the day, you kind of have an idea of whether there's an actual market for this, right? So that's what this customer development part is. Um, Having a market doesn't mean like, it doesn't even have to be a big market. It just means that it's like a real problem. Um, and one of my favorite books is called The Mom Test. And this is what I recommend to everybody who has an idea and wants to kind of gauge whether it's an idea worth pursuing. So the concept here is if you went to your mom, assuming you have a good relationship with your mom, and you said, hey mom, and I have an idea for this iPhone app and it does this, that, and the other thing, and she would say, oh, that's great, dear, I love you, you should follow your dreams. And it didn't really actually tell you if it was, if you should pursue it or not, right? She's just being encouraging. And the problem is that people don't like to hurt people's feelings, even if you don't know that person. Um, that's one part of it. And the other part is that people are very bad at judging their future behavior. So I can say that I'm going to do that, that if you made this product that I would totally use it because it would save me so much time. But the truth of the matter is that, I'm already have a process for doing that, and switching is hard, and maybe it's too expensive, and maybe I'm just lazy, and Maybe I'll get to it after the million other things that are, higher up in my priority list. So you can't really trust when people, if you ask people like, hey, if I made this, would you use it? So instead, what you have to do is you have to ask them about their current and past behavior to see whether or not, it matches up with what you think. So I don't know how to get into this. Um, we'll get into it during the process. How about that? So going back to this, so then prototyping is kind of like sketching out what what the different pages would be, screens of an app or pages of a web app, and the goal is to get it out of your head and into something that is like visual. Because especially if you are working with more than one person, which if you're doing customer development, right, you have these potential customers. You want to make sure you're on the same page. So you could both be describing something with very similar words, but they're actually two different things. It happens a lot. So, it's like, um, because we all have our own, we make assumptions and we have our own, ideas of how to solve things. So for the same problem, even describing the same solution, it might look completely different from person to person. So the other part of that is one of my favorite words is reification. I think I saw this in some software library way back in the day. Um, yeah, making into a thing. So I don't know why it's Marxism, but to reify is to make something like tangible, to take an idea and make it like a thing. So that process is actually very difficult. And the prototyping stage is honestly where a lot of time and energy is spent. Because, in a way, okay, so if you think about the process of making software, um, by the time that it's launched in live, right, that's a very expensive time to change it, right? You might have data that you need to adjust and you have to like push things out live and people are used to using it. So think about like, um, yeah, it just gets a lot slower and a lot harder to change things. So moving back, right, before you launch, changing the software there is a good place. But how about during the design phase? That's even cheaper and easier and quicker to change. But still, the designers already put work into it. So what about, you keep moving back. So in the prototyping stage, you can move things around and think through the entire app, or at least the MVP that you want to build. And it's just much cheaper and easier because it's just essentially like scratching on the back of a napkin, right? So that's the idea of continuing with the MVP is that you move it back further and further. So even before we do, the prototyping stage, like what if we could do it during the requirement stage? And then if we move it back, what if we could figure it out, during the determining the solution, move it back one more? What if we could figure out while trying to figure out the problem? Um, I don't know if that makes any sense. I'm sorry, I've never thought about explaining it that way before. But okay, so yeah, so you would create a prototype. Um, then you would run it by some customers again, see if it's a viable solution, and then you would actually, according to Lean Startup, this would be a good time to try to like test your channel. So now that you have like a feature list, you would create a static site. You'd send some traffic to it and see, how people are responding. One of my most successful smokescreen websites, uh, I think this is it. I don't know if it's still up. I took it down. Um, so it was just like it had all these sort of features on all these pages. It looked like a real software sales page. And then it said, hey, we're in private beta. Give us your name and email address and an explanation of like why you want to use this. And I think I even had like checkboxes for each of the features. And so what I got was some quantitative data of like what features people would want, and then some qualitative data as to who they were, what industry they were in, how they wanted to use it. Um, I got hundreds of responses on that, and that was definitely a missed opportunity. Now I think there's one called Memberful. I forget what it's called, um, that already solves that need. But it was really cool to see those responses. That was one of my favorite things. So the idea is that you can get some feedback even before you build it. Um, and then I think these last few weeks are the actual building of it is the idea. So seeing how quickly you could put together um, actual software. So it's come a long way in how quickly you can make stuff. There's this newish thing called no code software where no code development platform. Yeah, so like Airtable, Bubble, and stuff like that. Um, there's a couple sites that have a list of tools on it um, that I could bring up in a sec. But the idea is that like these days, so much can be done with just drag and drop interfaces, right? So you can build like the app interface, and maybe you can hook it up to a data source. Um, and so you don't necessarily have to be able to code to create something. And Bubble is one of the, I think it's bubble.io, is one of the most feature rich tools here in the space at the moment. They've been around for like many, many years and have some good money. Um, but yeah, they've got so many features. They have this great blog post that says that there's a difference between programming and coding. And programming is thinking through the application, how the user, flows through it, how the data flows and is connected. Um, building that sort of, I kind of think of it almost as like, um, those toys, like when you're a kid that like the ball would expand and shrink. Um, yeah, so when it's out, right, it's kind of this lattice and things are all connected like that. That's kind of how I see coding um, or programming. So you have to think about things like that. But the coding is just the actual syntax of it. So I just realized that I don't know if anybody, um, if they sent me a message, I don't know if I would hear it. Anyways, um, yeah. So I think less and less, and in the future, fewer and fewer people are going to have to know the actual syntax, and instead, the actual coders are going to be making tools that allow other people to program, uh, if that makes sense. So launching a web application or a mobile application will get easier and easier. And already it's like super easy. DraftBit, I think, is one of them. Um, Adalo, I think it's like Ada Lovelace is like she was like an OG programmer. Visually build native mobile apps. Adalo, build your own no code app. So honestly, like if I'm honest with myself, what I would love to do eventually is to build a tool like this specifically for SaaS that would let somebody have an idea and then throw it together, at least like a working MVP of it, launch it, get initial customers, and say, hey, this is working. Let's actually transition into maybe like a more fully fleshed out you know application, like with hiring programmers and stuff. But my main pet peeve, or not pet peeve, I guess I have a soft spot in my heart for people that have good ideas that don't know where to start, and people that have good ideas that maybe don't go around about it, and like they might, like one misstep during the process could cause you to feel like you failed, right? And you would just give up. And that could be like one misstep. A common one would be hiring the wrong developer. Besides the fact that it can be very expensive, um, often they'll just like build whatever you tell them to build, and that's not always the right thing to do. But um, so I guess my point is, short story long, if you go back to pre-lean startup, right? So when I started my career was in like the mid 2000s, so 15 years ago, and that that wasn't even a thing at the time. Um, so you would just build stuff, launch it, and then see how are people using it. Very expensive, big teams, very slow to do, right? Lean startup comes out, hey, we still have those same teams, but let's use them in a more agile way. And then fast forward 10 years from that, I think these days if not today, but hopefully in the next like 3 to 5 years, um, if you have an idea, just like just go try it, right? You don't even need a developer. You don't need funding. You don't need anything. Just go put it together and try it. And so, since I am fortunate enough to have some of these skills, I'm going to try to use as many off the shelf things as I can. And I'll program in other places when I can't. But yeah, that's kind of how I'm seeing this stream, I guess. So as you can see up here, it's almost 3:30 in Alaska. So that's 1 hour behind Pacific and 4 hours behind Eastern. So that means it's like 7:30 on the East Coast. But yeah, so for like 2 hours, from 3 to 5 my time, which is 4 to 6 Pacific and 7 to 9 Eastern, Monday to Friday, just gonna show up and I'm gonna do some work and hopefully make some progress on this app that I've been thinking about for a few months and just haven't done anything with. So let me take let's transition, I guess, from like, yeah, that's just like philosophy type stuff. The actual app that I want to make is kind of like GiveWell. So they are a pretty cool organization. They actually will go through um, and vet certain charities, right? And so they're like, hey, like I looked at this one for, I guess Micro Dreams is kind of like Akiba.org, and they say, hey, so I don't think they ended up funding it. Yeah, other charity reviews. Um, so they say, hey, here's some stuff that they do well, and here's some stuff that they didn't do well, and here's some questions that we have. So like, do they monitor why borrowers drop out, right? So um, if you've ever done or like participate in Kiva.org, you kind of give money and you put together, you're part of this like loan bundle to this one person, and maybe they buy, they have to buy a new taxi. They already have one, but their car died, so they need a new taxi. And so then over time they pay back that loan, and then now you as a Kiva participant have money to give. So I guess they're reviewing this is probably like that. But they ended up not funding this one, this Micro Dreams. They have their own reasons, and so there's this whole list of charities. Yeah, here that they considered, and that's pretty cool. I don't know what Finca Peru, um, Operation Smile. I feel like I know that one. Do they do like cleft palate surgery? Um, anyways, so yeah, so they have this whole list, but the ones that they pick, like their top 10, you're able to do this donation, and so you can say, hey, I just want to donate, $25 a month, and GiveWell will split that up how they think it's most useful. Or down here, you can say, I specifically want to do this one, and give directly. That's only 20. um, let's do that one. So, yep. So add 10%, right, for GiveWell's unrestricted use. So this exact page, this is what I want to build. And make a donation once every month, every quarter, exactly that. Billing information, exactly that. I never thought about dedicating, share my name, okay, receive Gilbo, cool. So it's cool that they're a 501c3. That means that you have, it's tax deductible to give well. I'm not a lawyer. Maybe I could talk to one about, whether if like the page that I'm trying to build that forwards it on to these other organizations, if that would be considered tax deductible still. That would be pretty cool. But yeah, donate by cryptocurrency. That's funny. So this is cool, right? But this is like 10, or I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is their top 8 charities. Um, so that's really neat. But as you can see, there's like a million of these charities. And yeah, this is just the ones that this one organization considered, right? There's like so many more around the world. And what kind of inspired this was I was recently in Mexico before all the COVID stuff broke out. And um, and I made a friend who worked with dog rescues. Um, and and I would help, like, I volunteered at some and walked some dogs, and I learned, essentially you've got a limited amount of local funding. A lot of times it's actually tourists that come to town that learn about it that will donate. Sometimes it's through a Facebook page, but I've kind of been peripherally. I've seen other charities where a lot of time is spent on you know contacting donors and trying to find new donors and donor outreach and cataloging the donors and donations and sending you thank you cards and like processing. Like that's like a full-time job in some places, maybe multiple jobs. And when we're talking about, like, maybe you have 25 wealthy patrons and you're trying to manage that might be one thing. But when you're trying to manage like 250 donors or 2,500 donors, or heaven forbid 25,000 donors, right? And so the fact that you're like, heaven forbid, right, you would think that more donors is better, but it just gets so messy. And also, so ditto on the donating side. So if I wanted to give 25 bucks right now, I can name like a couple charities off the top of my head. Like, I think I've donated to what's that one where they just donate a cow or a chicken or something like that? Sorry, I'm sure I'll get to know that name again eventually. Um, right, and then I've heard recently Give Directly. Of course, there's the bigger ones like the Red Cross or something. So the point is that, like, if I really wanted to dig in and say, like, I would love to donate to some dog shelters in Mexico, like, that would be quite a project to put that together. And that's kind of the project that I guess I'm going to be taking on with this, but hopefully in a smarter way of having people like submit charities that we could donate to. Um, but yeah, maybe starting with a list like this is a good place. So this same page, you but so instead of just this 8, right? Imagine that you could say, okay, I definitely want to only donate 25 bucks a month, right? But then you can keep adding charities. So if I had 5 charities, right? Maybe it's $5 each charity, or maybe I could say like this, 10 over here, or like, I'm gonna get kind of lost on the math. Whatever $10 of 25 is, it's like less than half, like 40%, let's just say. Um, so yeah, 40% to this one, and 10%, 10%, 5%. I just made those up. So right, you can kind of see like proportionally I want most of it to go here, and then I want to kind of evenly split over here. And so if I were to increase it to $50, the proportions could stay the same, and they would all get more, or I could decrease it right down to $10, and they would still, get the same percentage of that. Um, but going back to $25, if you kept adding them, right, eventually, if you add more than 25, then there are going to be some that are less than a dollar by definition, right? It's called the pigeonhole principle. I remember that from college. Uh, so with less than a dollar, like, oh man, at that point, like the credit card fees are usually like 30 cents plus 2.9% of the transaction fee. And it's just like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, why would you donate a dollar to a charity and then they lose, 35 cents of that? And then they have to like record a 65-cent payment and then send you a thank you card. It's ridiculous. Um, but if you could flip this around, right? So the organizations currently have in the hundreds of donors donating in the tens or hundreds of dollars. If you could get that into the thousands or hundreds of thousands of donors donating into the single or tens of dollars, I think the donors are going to be giving more money to more organizations, and the organizations are going to be getting more money from more people. And I think it's a win-win, even if on an individual scale it might be less than a dollar from you to that organization. It doesn't matter because your 65 cents is bundled with 100 other people's 65 cents, and it's $65, or 1,000 other people's 65 cents, right? And it's $650. So that organization gets a $650 check or direct deposit or whatever every week or month, or I haven't figured out how often that would have to happen or how that would happen. That would actually be a question for charities. But yeah, so they get like this regular thing, right? And then so you give your $25, they get their regular payment in their bank account, and everybody wins, right? So you're like, I guess I never thought about it this way. It's kind of like the subprime mortgages, right? You're bundling up these things and selling them, but you're not selling them; you're giving them, donating. It's also kind of like, in a way, it's almost like an investment portfolio. So I don't know much about stocks or any of that sort of stuff, but right, there's some index funds that represent a range of stocks, right? So you buy the index, not the stocks directly, and the index fund buys and sells, right? And how much you make depends on what percentage of that index fund you own, and then how much the actual stocks have changed. That was probably a terrible explanation of index funds, but the point is like, okay, what if I had said, like I was saying, dog shelters in Mexico? Like, what if that was an index fund, and maybe there's 250 of those? Um, Instead of having to add 250 individual charities, I could just say dog shelters in Mexico is something that I care about donating to, and it would automatically, um, I'd say I want to give $10 to dog shelters in Mexico. So $10 divided by 250 dog shelters is, I already lost count. Is that like 4 cents? Yeah, I think it's like 4 cents per dog shelter. So not a lot, right? But again, you're bundled up with hundreds of thousands of people, um, and so it does still make a difference. But that could be something that I care about, right? And I keep using like animal shelters, but there's all sorts of things like they're having on here. There's things about water, there's things about health, there's things about children, there's things about women's rights, there's things about education, there's things about right culture and arts, um, gardening, homelessness. Like if you think about all these different categories, um, yeah, there's a lot, right? And so I think it's pretty cool how many different charities there are out there. I would love to support more of them. Um, I don't have bottomless pockets yet, but Actually, that would be a goal. I did the math yesterday. So if you wanted to, I don't know where this idea popped in my head. I think I was watching Better Call Saul, and they were talking about what. Oh, I don't want to give any spoilers. Anyways, at some point they were talking about what the characters would do with a lump sum of money, and I was in my head and I was thinking like I have no idea what I would do, right? And then so I did the math yesterday. Uh, an annuity, right? So where you just have a chunk of money and then the interest on that, you never touch the principal. You only take the interest. If you wanted to donate $1 million a year, um, you would only need $25 million as an annuity only, but that would last like forever, right? So it's like if you didn't have it in a place that's growing interest, you could spend it for 25 years, right? And you'd be at zero. But if you have a growing interest, then every year it kicks off another $1 million that you could donate. And so I've seen these in like like trust funds or foundations or something like that, right? I mean that's how the uber wealthy do it. But I think that'd be pretty cool. It'd be cool to have the ability to donate. I don't really know what my criteria would be. That'd be crazy. So I'll start small. I'll start with what I can afford right now. So again, I don't know how to tell if people have come on the stream. I'm guessing they haven't because this is my first time streaming. Yep. Yep. Okay. Um, so I'm going to check on my phone just to see. Maybe that's a good way to do it, and then I can not have to keep checking on the video. Where are we even? So a lot of people, when they have an idea that they really care about, and I fall into the same camp, it can be a mistake to over-identify with it, right? So actually, the best way to not over-identify is to say like, look, I'm in it to. That was me waving at myself to make sure the stream was actually going. um, the best way to not over-identify is to just be willing to switch ideas, right? So I was in the global startup weekend, which wasn't this past weekend, but the one before. Um, and the team I was on, the person that came with the idea was over-identified with it. So that means that any new evidence, that kind of contradicts what they were saying, or any new input from other team members, it becomes an argument because they want to go right back to the idea that they were having, and it's very frustrating. So don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to other people. If you if you're not working with other people and you believe in what you're doing, go for it. But when you encounter data, don't try to explain it away. That's my philosophy, anyways. Don't try to explain it away, and don't ignore it. Right? Like my first instinct is to kind of feel bad, and it's like almost offensive, right? Like you see, like there's another application or program out there or whatever, another company doing something similar. First instinct is to think, well, mine's different because of X, Y, Z, and it's, the defense makes sense, right? But only because we are kind of over identified with the idea and we think that the idea is us and we are the idea. And obviously that's not the case. So, not taking it personally, not over identifying with it, being open to new information. These are all things that I'm going to try to do. Um, but so sharing an idea is vulnerable, right? Because right, if it came from you, it's a creative part of yourself, right? Something that you care about. Putting that out in the world and having people criticize it can be it can suck, right? People can come up with like, well, here's why it's not a good idea, and then you get all depressed. Or people could say, um, that's not really possible. And even if there's even a risk that if you say that it's a good idea, then you kind of get that dopamine hit, and then you never do it because you already got a pseudo reward for it. Like, why would I go through all the work of actually doing it when I can just get accolades for thinking about doing it? I definitely fall into that trap a lot. But then, last but not least, um, people are always worried like if I put my idea out there, then somebody's going to copy it. And I'm very much like, I think it's documented, but I'm also just a believer in what is it, like spontaneous, not generation, that's like with the fruit flies, um, spontaneous discovery, simultaneous discovery, I forget the term. But essentially, like, Darwin wasn't the first one to come up with evolution. There was somebody across in some other part of the world that thought of it at the same time. Same with like a number of things in science and physics and maths and all that sort of stuff. Um, Somehow, when the time is right for an idea, like it just starts percolating around the population. And there's a really great book, um, Big Magic, where she's the author of Eat, Pray, Love. Um, Man, this is such a good book. It The idea is that ideas are kind of, and actually the author of Dilbert, Scott Adams, says something similar. Ideas are like aliens, right? They are invisible and they kind of roam around, and then when they come into our heads, they try to see, are we the right vessel to make them into reality, right? To reify them. And so they'll kind of like bug us for a while, like, hey, make me real, make me real, make me real. And then if we don't do it for long enough, then they leave. And I have so many ideas that I used to be obsessed with that I never did, and then they're gone. And that's kind of sad. And then, like that one I was talking about, again, I forget, member space, member full, something like that. Um, that was the idea that I had that I didn't follow through with it. And so somebody else did. But the reality is, the reason that came about is because everybody's kind of seeing the same sort of trends, they're seeing the same opportunities, they're seeing the same problems that need to be solved. And so, yeah, people that are in the right place at the right time with the right skill set, the right motivation will just do it. So don't I try not to worry about putting ideas out there because the reality is, and this is like one of those like startup-y quotes, like ideas are cheap, it's execution that counts. So another adage is like the company that gets closest to the customer wins. So it's the more that you find out about the problem and the people that you're trying to help, then the more successful you are going to be in creating something that will actually help them and that they'll actually use. Um, and so that kind of goes with the execution part. It's all about like you could have multiple companies working on the same problem, um, but how they see the problem and how they see their customers and how they see the solution is going to depend very much on um, the approach that they take. So it's all about taking the right approach. I'm going to stop the video for just a sec. And yeah, I'll leave my video on. But I need to use a password thing. I'm going to put the Twitches on my phone. Bear with me real quick, because I don't even know. Boom, 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 boom. Boom, 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 boom. Yes, this is the thing. Okay, and then it is off, right? Yeah, okay. I definitely have a black screen. That's good. that was enough talking, and then we can actually start doing some stuff. I use password manager, and so these passwords are like not the funnest to type in. But I have so many accounts that I have different password managers for each account. So I don't actually have this one on my phone. Can't just copy paste it. All right. Cool. I am going to leave that on. How do I mute it though? I guess I'll just have them on my phone very quiet. I also realized that I never actually put like any sort of description on this video. So I just kind of like made the account and press start. Oh well. Um, cool. Let me kill all these screens. Boom, boom, boom. All right, and I guess we can turn back on that. All right. So essentially this, right? Um, Notion. Um, we can come to Notion later. I'll use Trello for now. Um, so the way that I want to capture this is in. I guess I already have an account for this. That's cool. Um, I want to capture it in what are called user stories. So that's not at all what I wanted to do. It's okay. It's gonna have a lot of my personal Trellos on it. Burp-a-derp-a-der, stupid Atlassian. Burp-a-derp-a-der. I don't like any of this. Okay. No. I'm gonna have to get used to this whole streaming thing. Is like all my stuff is all personal stuff, and that's okay. But we'll just do it in here. I'll put it somewhere like in Notion later. Yeah. So user stories. So the idea is that like, okay, instead of just listing features, you list it as like user actions. And so this is part of the brainstorming phase of being like, okay, let's get all of the ideas out of your head, or my head in this case, um, and into one place. So let's see, I was going to do this until 5 o'clock my time. So this, if we do that for like another 45 minutes or an hour, probably be good. All right, so I'm kind of cheating. I had written some of these down, like I said last night, up until like 3 a.m. But these won't be in any particular order. So some of these ideas, right, they're just kind of like pie in the sky type things. They definitely won't be part of the MVP. But um, what I was thinking is that like the social image would be like a graph of charities. So like as a user, when I share my profile link, the image that shows up on social media, like Facebook, Twitter, etc., is a pie graph of my different charities. Pie graph or something. Okay. Yeah. So the idea is like I would love if I posted that on Facebook, that it would show kind of what it's broken out into. So one of the big assumptions is that people are going to want to share this, right? Let's write some assumptions. That's probably super small, isn't it? How do I do text? I don't know. I never try to do this on here. All right, we'll keep switching tools until we find something that works. Good old text edit, because why not? Boop, 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 boop. All right, we'll carry that one, and then let's save this just in case. Um, I don't know what this is, like charity. I don't even have a name for it. Charity user stories. All right, and then I didn't mean to type a curse word. That was going to be assumptions, and I just stopped in the middle. let's make a second one of um, assumptions. Okay, so people have a hard time. Okay, let's do this for donors, and then we'll do that for charities. Donors have a hard time finding charities to donate to, right? Um, I don't know if that's a thing. Donors would like a public profile of charities they donate to, would like to see charities their friends donate to, um, would donate to an index fund of charities, like the dog shelters in Mexico idea. Um, okay, what else? Donors. Okay, we'll see some more assumptions as we keep typing. Um, okay, what is this? Donation slider. Okay, so I don't know if this is going to be a thing because I kind of like the way that GiveWell does it. But so as a user, when I'm donating, I can. It's kind of like Humble Indie Bundle. I don't know if they still do it this way, but I can like set a percentage of my donation that goes to support um, the site. So then we could say something like min 3% if credit card, default 10%, like GiveWell has over here, right? But I kind of like their 10%, but I don't know. I would think, like I might think 10% might be a little bit much. Maybe I'll just do it as 5% if I was donating to them, but whatevs. So, okay, assumption. Donors would be more likely to donate to the site if they had control over how much of a percent they're donating, or how much like actual dollars. So you can see like I'm trying. It's really hard actually to try to do this devil advocate stuff with myself, but I have these ideas and this vision of what I want the product to be, right? So I'm trying in this case to kind of get some of these features out, these user stories out. But I'm also trying to be like if I were talking to myself as a consultant, uh, what sort of questions or what sort of like pushback would I give? And it's not pushback because I think it's a bad idea. It's just we have so many assumptions about so many of the things that we do that we don't even realize it. So questioning those assumptions is what the lean startup is about. That's what you can do in customer development surveys. And yeah, so writing these down and questioning these is going to be pretty key. Okay. Can't read my 3 a.m. handwriting. Okay, I'm going to say something like um, anonymous usernames. Something like, dog rescuer, 911 or something like that. I think I have a friend who's something like Yorkie Rescue 911. Um, so yeah, so the idea is that like, okay, I might be willing to have my donations out there, but maybe I don't want to put my real profile, my real name. Okay, user profiles. Okay, would like a pro charities they donate to, and or would be more likely be public if anonymous username. So many assumptions. Okay, so user profiles, we would have like username, real name, avatar or image, and then you'd have like another user's their username, real name if public, image if public and available, avatar if otherwise. Does that make sense? So like if I've uploaded an image of like my face or an icon or whatever, then show that image. But if not, then use some sort of default avatar. Or if I say, don't maybe profiles are only public, to friends, right? So it's like a semi-public, a private, I guess. Right. So that your friends could see your real name and your real photo, but on the web it would be profile would be an avatar. These are just thoughts. Um, and a list of charities I donate to and how much money to each if public. So again, maybe your friends can see that you're donating 25 bucks a month. Um, maybe you don't want that public, right? Mm, just making this up. We'll figure this out when we talk to actual people. All right, so okay, so following. Um, I want to be able to. I really don't need this. This adds a. It's kind of an overused thing in Agile. Most of the time, you're saying as a user. Um, I'll just say when I'm talking about it as a when I'm talking about it like as an admin of the system, I'll say as an admin. Otherwise, we'll just assume it's as a user. Okay, so following when I'm on someone's profile, I want to be able to follow them. So Maybe it's not friends so much, maybe it's followers. That might be a thing, right? Because there's the Instagram and Twitter model, right? And then there's the Facebook model. In Facebook, in general, I think maybe I'm not up to the dates with all their privacy controls, but you like you send a request and then the other person has to add you, and then you can see each other's stuff. Whereas like Twitter and Instagram, it's all public, but you follow people because you're interested in knowing about when they change stuff. So I want to be able to follow them. Um, and then so what happens at the end of that? So I am now part of their followers list, and they are part of my following list. Um, so we want to follow other users to see what new. Okay, so following. See, I don't know. Notifications, this is beginning kind of like, this is getting kind of out there. But it's like, on Twitter or Instagram or whatever, when there's new stuff. Um, so like so and so, added whatever charity to um, their donation fund or list or whatever. So when someone I follow adds a new charity to their funding list, I'm just going to call it that. I have no idea. I want to see some sort of notification, whether that's a feed, stream, like the bell in the corner, red dot bell, etc., where I can essentially dig into that, right? So it's about like discovering and unearthing charities, right? So you would have kind of, well, we can get to that later, but there's like different ways that you could slice and dice it. But social discovery, I think, would be a good one. Some sort of notification where I can dig into that charity. So what I was going to say is that you could have like um, charities lists, all charities list. So this could be like looking at a list of all charities. I want to be able to actually, let's see. Okay. So when I'm looking for a new charity to add for new charity, I want to be able to see a list of all charities in the app. So let's do like some sub things. Let's do filter charities list filter. Um, filter by, let's just keep it simple. I guess we're going to say these charities have like a category, right? Like animals, children, water, health, food, something like that. And then let's also say geography. I don't know how granular we want to get with that, if it's by country level or like if you're in the US, if it's by state level, it's by city level. I have no idea. Filter by category and geography. Okay, we'll go with that. We can always add it later. Charities search to search by keyword. So this would be like organization or something in the description. I don't know. I feel like there should be at least one more. I'm gonna put here too. And then charities sort to sort by, let's see. I don't know if date added would be a thing. Are we gonna like popularity? Which, I mean, that's a weird thing, right? Popularity, let's just throw out a whole bunch of stuff. Popularity, number of donors, total dollars of donations. I'm gonna have to really think of why you would need that though, because otherwise it's just like a random thing. Um, Kind of losing steam here. How long has it been? Okay, got at least like another 30 minutes. Um, it's hard. The brain work is hard. And again, I'm looking at this notebook in my lap. Um, okay, so let's say Facebook. Let's say social media integration. So I want to social media platforms to be able to connect media accounts. So that would be Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I mean, those are the big ones, right? And okay, so let's do a sub one. So social media ad if is already like a user to my. All right, so the social media invite if someone I can invite them. So a quick aside, because yeah, my brain could use a break from thinking about user stories. There's this concept called growth hacking, and um, I forget who to give the credit to on this one, but the idea is like, okay, what like you could buy, Google AdWords and Facebook ads and Instagram ads and all those sort of things, but how do grow quickly without having to spend money on that, right? Like paid acquisition. Um, there's a lot of metrics in software, specifically software as a service, for like one of them is like the customer acquisition cost, right? So if it takes me, I have to show 1,000 advertisements before I get one sign up, and each advertisement costs 10 cents. Then it costs me $100 to get a sign up. That's pretty expensive. Um, and 10 cents isn't actually that much for an ad. They're usually more. So, given that, and I've already looked this up actually. I cheated on this, but not cheated. I did some research a couple months ago. Charity related ad keywords are so expensive. I guess everybody and their brother is trying to get donors, and so like if you have they're having the same metrics, right? So if I spend $100 to get you, but I know that um, you're going to pay um, $10 a month. This is like what Hulu is, right? Like they're $12 a month or something like that. So at the end of a year, you've paid Hulu $144. Um, that $100 might be worth it, especially because after month 8 or whatever, month 9, what is math? Um, they've already broken even on you, right? So they have to know our customer acquisition costs as well as our lifetime value (LTV). And if people sign up for Hulu and they hate it and they cancel after a month, then the lifetime value is like $12, or maybe even less because maybe they didn't get through the free trial. So you need to know that people are going to stick around, and that determines how much you can spend to acquire them. Otherwise, you're losing money, right? It's like people come in and they use your product and they leave, but you already paid money hoping that they would stay longer. So, anyways, the idea is always to increase lifetime value (LTV) and decrease customer acquisition costs. Long story short, growth hacking um, is a way of how do you do that organically. And so, Sean Ellis. Um, so like one of the things would be like invitations. That's an example of growth hacking, right? So um, Gmail had like the beta invite. They had like a limited number of things, and you had to be invited to it. Um, oh, there we go. I was about to talk about the pirate metrics. Um, yeah, and then even like Hotmail was like an old school one where at the bottom of every email that you sent, it said, sent by Hotmail or something like that. People would click and be like, what is Hotmail? Right? So you by the definition is you by using the service are in a sense advertising the service and bringing other people to it. It can be similar to word of mouth, but it doesn't have to be. Um, but it's virality, right? When we think about viral, a video going viral, how do you make your app go viral? And that sounds terrible when you say it, but that's what growth hacking is. How can you engineer it so that things go viral like that? Um, yeah. So pirate metrics, since we're here, those are way too small. I guess I didn't think about that until I'm seeing it now on my phone over here. Um, R, right? That's why they're called pirate funnel. So as a user goes through, they start out with awareness of your product, right? So it's like, oh, I've heard of Disney Plus, right? And then they activate acquisition would be like you sign up for it. So that'd be like the 14-day trial. Activation is that you actually pay, right? So when the trial ends and you pay the $8 or whatever Disney Plus is, which is way underpriced, and they're obviously trying to price other people out of business. Um, yeah, so activation is like you're actually paying, and then retention is, oh, I guess activation would be like, now I'm actually kind of confused, and that's really embarrassing actually. So the retention is like you stick around. I guess revenue doesn't have to happen at activation, um, right? Because you could be using the free 2 GB of Dropbox for like years before you run out, and then you upgrade to their, what is it, 2 TB or something like that, which is a big jump. But yeah, so retention is like, do people stick around? And there's another term, and man, I guess so many terms. So there's a term called churn, um, churn rate, which isn't very, yeah. It's so the number of people that leave your app, right? So let's say that you every month you are acquiring, um, 1,000 new customers, but 1,001 are leaving. Eventually, you're going to be out of customers, right? Because everyone for every one that joins, another one has left, and So you want to get that churn rate down, and it's normal, right? Because some people they're done with the service or whatever, they don't need it anymore. So there's always some natural churn. I'm sure with like Netflix, they probably have pretty low churn because people like once they're on, they just like always stay on. How many people do you know that have canceled their Netflix or their Gmail or something, right? Um, but yeah, in reality, there's always going to be some churn. Um, but the idea is to make that as low as possible. And if it's too high, it's probably because you know you're not making the right product, right? Or you're not doing it the right way. You're not making it easy enough. You're not solving the right problem in the right way, whatever. So, anyways, back to growth hacking and ARG pirate metrics. Um, yeah, so this last one. So we talked about retention revenue, referral, and that one's often overlooked. But your referral rate is a good indicator that you've created something worth like a value, right? Because people are willing to vouch for you and say, "Hey, friend, um, you might benefit from this cool product," and there are only like there's only a few products that I would do that with, right? Um, Back in the day, I was like, oh yeah, Dropbox is awesome, and but then you have to kind of like, if it wasn't so easy or if I had problems with it, like I used Google Drive and I hated the syncing. Like when it started doing its syncing, it would like eat up the computer and it would slow down and stuff like that. Somehow Dropbox did it differently, um, right? So yeah, so the referral one, growth hacking, where did we come from? I like that break. I'm glad that, I could think about it for a minute. Or not think about user stories. Social media invite. Yeah, that's a way to get people in there. Growth hacking. I just like being able to share a public profile, right? Putting that on your Facebooks. Um, all right. So, yeah, this really hurts my brain. Public charity profiles. So, we'll think about this from two different perspectives. As a charity, I want to be able to have my organization represented with with our logo, name, location, categories, description. What other sort of things would a charity like? Website, social medias. Anything else? I'm thinking about as an organization, right? Like, yeah, you as the user might not care about all of that, but it'd be nice to be able to brand as an organization. Okay, and then as a user, I want to be able to about the charity and to see how many donors there are, how much is donated, how much moolah, and whether any of my friends donate. So that's called social proof. I guess I'll keep doing the sidebars. So social proof. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. Ah, I didn't know this from a 1984 book. Informational social influence. So if you try to think about where this is used on the web. Well, any sort of like sales page, right? You're about to sign up for some software and they have testimonials, like that's a form of social proof. Like there's another human out there that says, this is valuable. So no human, or let's say, yeah, no no social proof is like nobody's vouching for it. Just text-based social proof is people like you can see like a blurb, and that's like okay, there's words, but not there's not really humanized it, right? So then you put like an image to it, and then you're like, oh, cool, that's an actual human, even if it's a stock photo. Um, which you know that like on the websites when they have testimonials, those have got to be like stock photos, unless everybody has a perfect headshot. Um, and then even better would be, oh, human I know, right? So maybe that's like an influencer, or I can't believe I just said that word, a celebrity or a famous person or whatever, somebody you respect, if they endorse it. And then the one more step like closer to you would be like if a friend endorses it, right? Again, going back to like the um, what were we just talking about before this? Growth hacking, referrals, yeah. So that's kind of like a social proof. So if my friends are donating, uh, yeah. So there's this interesting thing where you could um, I guess this happens on like comments on Facebook or following on Instagram. Like you would see your friends at the front, right? So it's maybe they show like liked by 10 people or 100 people or whatever, and they show like the first 10 heads. If any of your friends had liked it, they're the beginning. They're the first heads that you see, right? So as you're scanning, you're like, oh, recognize that person, that person, that person, and then there's strangers, but they're still human heads, right? Pictures, so they still have humanity to them. Um, so doing that, I guess, is what I'm saying. Yeah, there's actual people that give money to this charity. Here's some pictures. If any of them are your friends, we'll show those ones first. Man, okay, I feel like I'm lagging. More minutes of this, and then we can think about what to do for next time. Um, this one's about like charity sign up. We'll get to that one later. Donors choose individual charities or an index fund. Okay, did I put that out here? So, nope. Okay, so add a charity. So, I'm gonna be able to add a charity to my list of donations. Oh man. Okay, so when I and determine how much of my okay, we're definitely gonna have to figure out something more specific than that. But in general, at a high level, you want to add this into your portfolio. I'm going to start calling that. Add a charity to my portfolio and determine how much of my monthly amount to contribute to that charity. Uh, add an index fund. I think that's the right term. I want to be able to add an index index fund. So this sounds like the same story. Uh, the reason that they're separate is because we might do this one and not ever get to this one, or the database, what we're gonna have to do there is different from this one. So something's bugging me about this though. Oh, I think we need to have like charities lists. Do we need to have an index fund list? In order to find index funds to portfolio. And filter, search, sort, much like the charities. So this is one of the times when the prototyping is going to be beneficial because we can figure out if those should be the same page or different pages, or should they be interacting the same even if they're different pages. Okay, and by interacting I mean like the same user experience. The searching of the charity. Okay, yeah, filtering by geography. Cool. Okay. Um, okay. Related. So print a okay. So not we'll have to see. Maybe not all organizations are tax deductible. Like for instance, I don't know if international ones are. Like again, the dog shelters in Mexico. Um, I'm not a lawyer or an accountant, but I think the tax deductibility has to do with the 501c3 classification. I'm pretty sure 501c3, and so I think that you need to just make sure whether an organization is might take some vetting, but okay. So on that sense, so charity sign up. So I don't know whether they should be invited. Maybe that's another thing. So organization. So this is like um, maybe every quarter they send a thank you card or something like that, or every year. We want to be able to see the personal information of name, email, mailing address. See, I don't know. Maybe we won't go that far. Maybe they can just like, maybe they can use this system to email people. I don't know. So as an organization, see, this is why I'm thinking, I don't know about the registering, right? Because not just anybody can come in and just make an account. I guess that's a good place to stop for a second. So going back to this list, there is very specific criteria, right, for who can be on here. I had heard of another one called like small charity fund. I don't know. Small charities challenge fund? No. Global giving? Maybe. Um, but it was like some organization that was like, I don't know, like a group of nonprofits. Um, so reaching out to places like that, right, that already have sort of like vetted organizations. I don't know how to go about vetting. Like if somebody were to sign up and said, Jim Bob's charity, like how do you know that that's a real thing? I have no idea. Which actually, so I'll throw this in there. I don't know if we'll ever get to it, but charity ratings in order to feel confident in what? So I don't know if this is useful, right? Because on Amazon, you get a product and you can go and review it and say 4 stars, you know, works as told, but feels cheap. And that's helpful, right, to people going to buy that exact same product. And you have firsthand knowledge of the quality of that product, or at least your subjective opinion of it. I don't know how you do that with charities, right? Because you're not going to really have any interaction. Maybe if you kind of crowdsourced it and people dug in and kind of vetted them, I have no idea. Maybe you do like the Twitter thing and it's got like the verified check mark by it. I have no idea, right? But you don't want to necessarily turn it into like the GoFundMe either, um, where it's like people putting on there like I need help with, um, a very specific one-time thing, because the idea is that this is like an ongoing, recurring, um, kind of taking the onus away from the organization staff to do donor relations and outreach. So I don't know. I don't know if the ratings make any sense. Plus, we all know that the ratings on Amazon don't even make sense anymore because you know you see a product that's rated like 4.8 stars and you get it, and it's totally junk. And then you get an email from the seller saying, "Hey, if you give us a 5-star rating, we'll send you a bonus product." And you're like, "Yeah, thanks. That's why it's terrible." Um, because people are hijacking the rating system. So I don't know. I think ratings have just kind of gone out the window. They were good while they lasted, but humans are humans. So I might put an X in front of this. We'll leave it on here, but probably won't end up doing it. Bum, 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 bum. So let's charity invite. So let's say as an admin, I want to be able to placeholder organization account and invite with an invite URL. So that's a pretty common way to do it, right? You can't sign up as a charity, but I can invite you. Um, Charity sign up. So let's say as this is always confusing when we're talking about admin, the admin of the site or admin of an organization. So sometimes I do super admin to mean like an admin of the app of the site, and we'll go with admin here, but we'll put in parentheses an organization admin. When I click an invite link, I am able to create my profile and then am automatically associated with that organization. So this is kind of like I've done a bunch of apps in this sort of vein where you've got the app as a whole, and then you got organizations, and then in those organizations you have different roles. You would have like an admin um, or a manager or something like that. So let's do that. Let's do it as a manager of an organization. But yeah, so there's all sorts of things that we're gonna have to do in that sense. But I don't think we need to build that out of right now, right? Because if we have an admin tool that we can use on our end, a super admin tool, then we'll just do all that stuff manually for the time being, and it'll be very time consuming perhaps, but that's one of the marks of it's time to build something is when you um, it's taking up too much of your time. Okay, so let's leave some of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, 50. Let's do the tax documents and these things down here. So the index fund list and adding an index fund, I'm actually quite interested in seeing if that's actually even a thing. Oh yeah. Um, as so as a manager, um, profile, I can edit the payout. So that'd be like routing number, account number. So I don't know how we'll do that, what system we'll use. I was looking up last night at a couple different options, but we'll see. And then just for kicks, charity edit as a manager from the charity profile, I can edit the charity information. So what did we say that there is? Logo, name. I'll just do all these ones. it's pretty standard, I guess, to have, you know, these sort of edit pages and stuff. So invite them, they can sign up, they can edit it, and they can change the payments. So you can kind of see I'm organizing these by their category, right? So these are all charity. Um, let's do like index fund. Let's do this in the profile area, user profiles, social medias. Let's do this. Let's just do user registration. I want to be able to choose an anonymous username, not show my real name. I was looking last night too. Again, I was up way too late at doing non-password signups. So it's like where it always sends you a text message or always sends you an email or something like that. I don't know. That might be kind of annoying. So let's leave that out for now. What was this one I just copied? Donation slider. Okay, so here's an important one, I guess. User profiles. See, my brain's already dying. Like, in order to edit my account, that's not helpful. Whatever. I want to be able to edit my profile image, name. I don't know if there's going to be a description, etc. Edit user payment. Credit card or bank account for payments. Let's just roll this into one story. Determine the amount I want to be charged as well as the billing period. Because to be honest, like if you're using something like Stripe, which is like a programmatic billing software, um, yeah, that's what you would put in. And you're just like, hey, do this recurring charge on this date using this payment method, or not this date, but like this frequency. Social image. Okay, we'll do that down in. I'm going to put that down in the bottom because it's probably the least super important part. So that's kind of, those are all like social aspects of it. Social. And then this is. And this is. Index funds. Charity management. And this is like miscellaneous to be determined. Whoops. Also sometimes called like an icebox. So again, I'll put this in something like Notion, so it's not just text, but the idea is like, yeah, if you organize them into groups that kind of make cognitive sense, then you can start to see gaps like, um, oh yeah, like this one, following, unfollow. When I'm following someone, I want to be able to unfollow them. I leave their list of followers. They are part of my following. And then the flip side of this is block, right? When I'm I think it's, I don't know, maybe that's not necessary at the beginning. It's definitely not part of like an MVP, right? It's not like helping us to test some of these assumptions about this. All right, so speaking of which, since we only have a little bit of time left, what assumptions did we just make about charities? Um, have a hard time finding donors, spend a lot of time and energy out to manage managing donors, um, would like to be a part of other charities, would be willing to manage yet another profile and keep it up to date. Can accept donations from a third party. And then legal assumptions that might more accurately be described as maybe it's good to talk to a lawyer. Um, so receiving donations on behalf of a nonprofit still counts. Um, as a charitable contribution, like tax speaking wise. Liability around verifying charities. Caveat emptor, I think that's how you pronounce it. Is that buyer beware? I only know that from a song. Caveat emptor. I think my thing just completely lagged. Deloused in the sanatorium. Comatorium. Mars Volta. All right, that's what I'm gonna have to listen to next. Anyways, legal accounting. What other stuff? I know I'm missing a bunch. Would trust giving money to a random site. So this is called, I think, perceived integrity. This is all about management. But so yeah, so the idea is like when people look at it, like can they trust or not, right? And sometimes it's just a judgment call. So like I'd almost not trust this site, except I've heard of GiveWell, right? This isn't exactly up to date. Doesn't If it weren't for like all the information on here, there'd be a lot of work to make that. um, doom, 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 doom. Okay. So I successfully made it through a whole stream and nobody signed on. I think that really was my bad for like not putting a description or anything. I have no idea if this even has a title. Um, yeah, but let's leave it here. I think those are all the assumptions that I can think of. These are all of the user stories that I can think of at the moment. This is like a pretty generic list, honestly. Most of the people that I've worked with, we end up with something pretty similar to this, which means that we're on the right track. So that's good. So I guess tomorrow, yeah, because today's Monday. Tomorrow at the same time, so 3 p.m. Alaska is 4 p.m. Pacific, which is 7 p.m. Eastern. Um, I'll be back on here. Um, maybe I'll have a Notion account already created, or maybe I'll transfer these over. And we can look at, maybe it would be good to do some actual validation of some of these assumptions, right? Send out some surveys. That's usually the first step in customer discovery. Is we would create two separate surveys, one for donors and one for charities, and we would ask some questions that would help to quantifiably validate or invalidate some of these, right? So a hypothesis, um, as much as you have a validation for that hypothesis, sometimes that doesn't mean that it's true. But as soon as you have, something that contradicts it, right? So I think they call it like a nullifiable hypothesis. You want to pick some questions that can prove things false. You want to have some assumptions and hypotheses that can be proven false. Um, like people are basically good is not a good assumption, right? That's not, because you can't test that. Um, yeah, and then maybe we'll actually do some customer discovery interviews. I don't know in Twitch whether you can get people on the horn or not. As in, like, are people able to call in, or is it just this one microphone and that's the only audio? I guess maybe the answer would be if I have any sort of fancy software, which I don't right now. But yeah, so maybe it's doing some actual customer interviews. Um, Speaking of, I guess, yeah, we can see where this channel goes and if anybody ever signs up for it. Um, but honestly, I was thinking about I used to have a Calendly link where people could sign up, and we'd chat for 30 to 60 minutes about their idea and talk about not necessarily user stories like this, but kind of more high level stuff. Some of the approaches to the business model. Um, Maybe I can go through the business model canvas, because I think, yeah, now that we have so many tabs, um, now that we have a good idea of what this would look like or what our assumption is, right? Like, okay, People sign up. There's some charities. They add these. They pay monthly. We disperse the money, and that's about it, right? Not too crazy. Um, so we can test those hypotheses. We can prototype some of that. We can look at the business model canvas and make sure that makes sense. Um, yeah, and then I'm really looking forward to actually starting to make it. Um, but I think it's always good to take a couple steps back and really think about things before you do make it, because it's very frustrating when you go down a road and you learn after the fact that it's the wrong road, and it's doubly frustrating when you realize that you could have avoided had a whole mishap. So instead of shutting myself off in a cave and coding for a few months, let's do some validation on this. Which honestly, customer interviews are always my favorite. I love talking to people. Um, yeah, so I'm excited. I appreciate this time and space you know, to dedicate to exploring this idea right now. And if it doesn't pan out, then a different idea in the future. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to tomorrow. And I guess with that, again, even though nobody's on, I will say have a good night and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. Bye. It's so awkward. It's like after you say bye to somebody and then you see them again in the grocery store. How do I stop Twitch? Where is Twitch? Am I crazy? Yes, but oh, I stop it here. uh, I wasn't logged into Twitch anymore. So awkward. That's what I get for being new at stuff. Gotta make some mistakes. That is all right. Uh, I have no idea what I'm doing. But I guess you get to see me try to figure it out. You're live. That's a good start. Make it not live. Where is that button? Is it this one? This one? This one? No. Live? Seriously, this is so funny. How do you stop it? Well, I guess this is my life now, and I will just sit here and forever be on the Twitch. Because that makes sense. Now I'm starting to feel a little embarrassed. This is the stuff I should have edited. Yeah. So what if like I don't know, is there a way to like go offline? Is that how I have to do it? 'Cause I think there was just like this just go live button. Unless it's on OBS. Do I stop it here? It is. That's silly. Okay. Bye.